Hey, what is up YouTube? This is Powerhouse here with another one of my videos, and today, once again, we are going to do a tier list. And the last time we did it for Soul Calibur, so I figured, you know what, let's do Tekken instead. Let's do the other popular Namco fighter, and Tekken is a perfect game. Tekken 2 is the first fighting game that I've ever played, and I've loved the series since. You know, I've been playing all the way up to 7, and I'm ready to go ahead and talk about it, and let's see which ones are the best. 5, Dark Resurrection, I didn't play. That was the one on the PSP. Then they also had Tekken Revolution, didn't play that one, and also didn't play 3D Prime Edition. I believe that was on the 3DS. Either way, I didn't play those, but the rest I have played, so let's rank them. Alright, the first one we're going to talk about is the original Tekken. And let's cut to the chase. Definitely the most skippable title of all the Tekkens. Least amount of characters. Graphics are horrible. Very stiff gameplay. The button prompts are very precise in how you execute them. Honestly, also a pretty ugly looking game. I mean, at the time it was impressive, I guess, because of it being a 3D game. But man, it looked horrid. And it's crazy because Tekken 2 didn't come that much longer after, and it looks fantastic. And then when you get all the way up to Tekken 3, which we will get into, it just blows both games out of the water. But like I said, it is the first, and I guess in a way you have to respect it for starting out the series, but it just hasn't aged well, and honestly is the most skippable title and my least favorite. It's also frustrating as hell. The AI is crazy relentless, lack of modes, really lack of any content and anything to do. And like I said, the game was just done far better in future iterations, which we will get to with the next one. As I said before, Tekken 2 was basically where the series started for me. I do recall getting this back in, I think, late 90s, early 2000s. It was years after the game already released, but you know, I finally picked it up, and it was fantastic, and at the time was one of my favorite PS2 games. I played it so much actually that I basically ruined the disc, and I didn't know that was possible. I haven't done it with a game before or since, but like I unlocked all the characters, I got all the secret characters too. I got Alex and Roger without even knowing how to do it. Like, I just discovered that on my own. Honestly, this to me is where the series starts proper, at least, you know, in terms of what the series really got known for. A lot of new characters were introduced. Jun Kazama was introduced. Heihachi was back. Kazuya was back. Lei was a new character that they introduced. They had a bunch of characters. A lot of them were mimics of characters, but they had so many like boss characters. They had Prototype Jack, they had Jack 2, they had, you know, King was back, Paul was back. Basically a lot of the characters from the first game was back, and plus some more. Beiku Dosan, which was a Taekwondo fighter, was one of my favorites to play as. He was hard as hell. He was Law's boss, and as badass as Law is, I mean, Beiku was definitely a run for his money. Visually, it was very beautiful, and honestly, still looks great today. Especially the intro cutscene. I love watching that over and over again. The music was fantastic. Gameplay was far smoother. It definitely played more like a 3D fighter. The sidestep wasn't introduced proper yet. That would be in the third game, but definitely more use of the 3D environment in terms of when you get hit on the ground, you could roll over. And honestly, it's one of my favorites, and I still come back to it, you know, just to kind of unlock all the characters again and see, like, you know, go through that journey again. Bruce was also introduced to. Basically a lot of staples, and like I said, still a lot of great fun. I'm kind of and also a lot of modes and stuff like that as well. This game, I could talk about it forever because honestly, it really got me started in the fighting game genre, especially for 3D fighters. I'm not sure if I'm going to put this at S, but I think it's really good, and I would really recommend this one. I'm going to put this at A tier for now. If I move it up to S, maybe, but I just feel like right now there's other games that I can definitely put at S, you know, for different reasons. So I'll keep this at A for now. Alright, the next is Tekken 3, which is easily the most popular Tekken game to date. I think this has basically, it was one of the highest selling games for the PS1, if not the highest selling. It really, I mean, Tekken 2 I feel like helped put it on the map, but Tekken 3 was like, at that point, that's when it really became a franchise, and that's, I would say that was its peak. And gonna be quite honest, it's never really reached the same popularity ever since then. This was basically, everyone had this game. I mean, growing up, a lot of people played this game. It was so much fun. You know, new characters were introduced. You know, Eddie was introduced. Lin Xiaoyu was introduced. I'm trying to think of others. Oh, Jin Kazama was also introduced. But it was a bit of a risk at the time because it was so far ahead in the future. I think like 20, 25 years in the future. So tonally, it's a little bit different. Visually, it looks better. Tonally, like I said, a little bit different. You can definitely see the anime roots start to take some precedence here. Not a ton yet, just very slight, but you'll see it develop way more into later games. But yeah, it was just you know, the gameplay was much smoother. It felt smoother. The sidestep, you had a proper sidestep now. It honestly, from just a combo perspective and a gameplay perspective, felt great. A lot of modes were introduced. Tekken Ball mode was introduced. Tekken Force mode was introduced, which is like that side scroller beat 'em up, which was later expanded in, you know, future installments. So honestly, it really was, you know, a great game through and through. Content wise, single player, a lot to do, a lot of characters to unlock, a lot of new characters to unlock. Brian Fury was in this one too, another staple. Yeah, there was a lot. You know, the more I talk about this game, like, there was a lot going on in this one. Dr. Boskanovich was introduced. There was so many like secret characters to get. You know, you had the ending mode where, and then the gallery mode where if you had the previous games, you can put them on the disc and then rewatch them. It was just great. Honestly, it's probably, I would say, out of all the PS1 games, easily the best. As much as I love Tekken 2, you know, from a nostalgia standpoint, I would definitely say Tekken 3 is the superior title and still hella playable today. Lots of fun. Like I said, just feels smooth, and there's a reason why this game is so beloved and why it sold so well. It's still aged, you know, it's aged like fine wine, I would say. And like I said, just feels the best control-wise, sidestepping and everything. It really is the pinnacle of the series from here. Alright, so the next is Tekken Tag Tournament, which this was a bit of a spin-off, you know, compared to the main series. Instead of it being the one-on-one 3D fighter, it was a two-on-2 3D fighter. But there are some, I believe you can do some variations to do it, like one-on-two and one-on-one. Some of the matches in the arcade mode are definitely that. So I would say with this one, it was very interesting for the time. They brought all the characters back from Tekken 1, 2, and 3, which was awesome. Because characters like Jun Kazama unfortunately did not make it to the Tekken 3 roster. I mean, it'd be impossible. But she did make it to, she did come back to Tekken Tag Tournament, which was great, fantastic. And then they introduced the character of Unknown into it. So it was just a lot of fun, like bringing all these characters back from the first 3 games and just putting them in as a fan game. Unfortunately, playing it, I don't know what it is, but it feels kind of stiff. Again, I'm not sure if it was just because it was the first game on the PS2 and they were trying to figure out the hardware. I'm not sure. But just feeling wise and movement and all that stuff, it feels a little delayed with the button in prompts, and the combos feel stiff. I don't know. There's just something with it that just doesn't feel as organic as I want it to feel. It's not a bad game, I would say. I think it's still a pretty good game, and you know, it definitely is, you know, a nice little novelty. I do think the sequel is a step up. Like the Tekken Tag Tournament 2 sequel is definitely a step up in playability and characters and a lot of other things. We'll get to that. But I think for modes too, there wasn't really a ton of modes compared to 3. So definitely was a step down there. I would say it's still pretty good. I'd say it's still fun to play with, but I definitely would recommend Tekken Tag Tournament 2 over it. I would say for now, let's put it in the B tier for now. Like I said at the end, I may rearrange this, but we'll see. Alright, so the next one is Tekken 4, and this was the first main series game proper for the PS2. And the biggest change that they made here is they went a little bit farther with the 3D. Instead of it being unlimited stages, they were said, okay, what if we take these stages and actually give a little more presence in the fighting, you know? Let's have some elevation, you know, you can go upstairs and stuff like that. You know, what if we have a little bit of that and make it more of an arena in a way? It felt more of an arena fighter than what we were used to in the past. And I think Tekken 4 was a little too ambitious in this department. They really wanted to push this environmental, you know, physics and all that stuff. But at the same time, them being pushing it and stuff, at the same time, it ultimately was a detriment because it really hurt balance. The competitive play was way worse because of it. Depending on the angles, like you would be lower than somebody, you would try to, you know, hit with a low, and because of the angles and stuff and the physics, it would not register. Same as if they were trying to hit with a high punch, it would miss you entirely. It really was not a fun experience, but at the end of the day, I don't think this is a bad game. Certainly better than the first one. Certainly better. But it is, like, I've played through this one and I've unlocked all the characters, at least unlocked everything I could. But by the end of it, I definitely was feeling lackluster. What I do like, though, is that they added some presentation to it. Like, they added more, they had like cutscenes and, you know, little snippets before you begin the arcade mode and at the end. So it definitely was more story focused, you know, in terms of fleshing out each character compared to the ones on the PS1. So it was great for that. The new characters they introduced, I don't remember all of them, but Craig Marduk is one of my favorite characters. But in this game, this was his worst iteration. Glad that they redid him and made him more, you know, like a brawler later on. Because in this one, not fun, not enjoyable. I would say this one, I definitely think, like, as much as I've played this one, I definitely do think, from a gameplay perspective, it definitely has more issues than that. Like I said, when I first played it, I loved it, but then towards the end of it, the cracks really started to show. I'm gonna put it at C for now because I was thinking about putting it at B, but I was like, nah, we'll keep it at C. I think this is where it belongs. But like I said, we'll see until the end. All right, now we're going back with Tekken 5. So Tekken 5 was a hell of a rebound for the series, I would say, because they added a bunch of new characters. They had the greatest intro of like video game history, at least the best mid-2000s video game intro ever. Love the music, love the theme, I love the cinematography, the graphics. It was just great. The energy, all that stuff. The music especially was fantastic. So it definitely starts off on the right foot. Even though all these games I feel like have pretty good intros. But just to continue, it was definitely a it definitely went more towards its roots. They were like, all right, let's ditch all that environmental things. Let's make it back more to a pure Tekken fighter. And it was a great decision. The stages now were, they had the infinite stages, but they also had stages that had like breakable walls and stuff. So now it was like, okay, we have some environmental effects, but it's nothing too detrimental, and it doesn't ultimately ruin the experience, which was great. I think having those stages was a great step in the right direction. So I definitely appreciate that. It's far more enjoyable gameplay wise. It feels, you know, very fast. It got a little bit too juggle. I would say this is when the whole juggle heaviness really got in. I mean, juggling was always a big part of the Tekken gameplay, but I gotta be honest with you, in Tekken 2, it was very hard to pull off. Like, Juggling was something that was very hard to pull off in the older games, but as the game started getting newer, added more combos, you know, making it more beginner friendly in a way, with the controls, like, you know, easier to pull combos compared to the older Tekkens. Juggling became a little too easy. Like, almost anyone can juggle, you know, just hit them with the launch uppercut and then just tap them a couple times and they just like float in the air. Tekken 5 wasn't too bad with it, but you definitely started to see that take center stage. But overall, I mean, I really enjoyed this one. The new characters introduced, I mean, they got Asuka Kazama, which has been one of my favorites too. Love her. And I also love that, you know, she's continuing to be in the future games. Basically, she's a bit of Jun Kazama's style, but more aggressive with it, because, you know, Jun Kazama was more of a pacifist, more of a peaceful with nature and stuff. But Asuka is more like a brawler. Like, you know, Asuka just hits you with the elbows, with the knees. Like, she don't play around, yo. Like, she'll box you. Like, she'll box a dude, you know what I mean? Like, you don't mess with her. So, you know, story wise, it was what it was. Honestly, I don't really play the Tekken games for its story. I used to really back in the day, but I've kind of, you know, I've fallen off with the story. But, you know, modes wise was great. Most of the modes from previous games came back, and they also had a cool thing where you can play the arcade mode or the arcade versions of Tekken 1, 2, and 3, which is a lot of fun and very nostalgic. Really like that they included that. Honestly, this is a really good game. It's really hard to say if I would put this at S or A, because I think it's really good. Like, I do think it's really good. I don't know if I'd say it's equal to 3. I would say for the PS2, it's easily the best Tekken on the PS2. Easily. I mean, it's better than the other ones. But if it's on the same level as 3, that's kind of hard. I would put it to A. Alright, I put it to A. I like how that went to S, but no, let's put it at A. Great game, recommend it. Remember, anything basically B up, I recommend it. Just, you know, obviously S I recommend more than A than I do B, but, you know, I still recommend these 4 as of now. Alright, the next is Tekken 6, which is the first game that came out on the 7th gen of consoles. And specifically, this one came out for the Xbox 360. It was the first, if I recall correctly, first multi-platform Tekken game, because the other ones were just PS2. This one was PS3 and Xbox 360. Now this one, I remember at this point I kind of fallen off the series. Like, I haven't really kept up at this time, but I eventually, you know, discovered Tekken 6 and I had a blast with it, especially with the new characters. Lily was a lot of fun. I think Lily was actually in Tekken 5, but actually I think she was in 6. But whatever. But Lily, I remember I played the hell out of her. Then they also had Elisa Boskanovich, was like this robot chick. She was pretty badass. I reviewed this on my channel, so I'll link to that game. And this one, Tekken Tag Tournament 2 and Tekken 7, I've done reviews on my channel, so I'll definitely put that in the description. And this one of the big things of the time, the big mechanics of the time, was the whole bound mechanic, I think it's called. Basically, like, you would knock someone in the air, knock them to the ground, then they would bounce up and you'd continue a combo. This is really when the game got way, in my opinion, this is really like, it got way too, it was getting really too juggle heavy at the time, which was frustrating, because now if you played with someone who knew what they were doing, you were getting killed. Like, I feel like in the past Tekkens, at least some of them, I feel like you could have at least had a chance with some people, but now it's like you really are going to get schooled if you don't know what you're doing. Again, that's, fighting games have that huge issue, but I feel like Tekken has it worse than others for certain iterations of the game. But I mean, I played the scenario campaign, which some people didn't like. I eventually beat it, and I've beaten like all the missions and stuff like that. It's not as bad as some people make it out to be, but it definitely takes some time to get used to controls with the left analog stick and the D-pad and stuff. It doesn't feel the smoothest when you're facing multiple enemies, but I mean, I did like it in terms of, you know, you fight these characters and then you use the equipment that you get to power yourself up, you know, do more damage, electrical damage, fire damage, etc., etc. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that part of it, even though some of the missions can be, you know, really annoying to deal with. And the fighting itself, like I said, the stages were beautiful. Graphically, it looked amazing. Best looking Tekken at the time. Tekken has always stepped it up. Every iteration of Tekken, every new iteration, always looks better than the previous one. So this one looked great. But it felt alright. Like, it was an overall good game. And like I said, I played this game a lot. But definitely, I feel like it wasn't as... It suffered from being a little bit too overhyped, and it doesn't have the greatest of modes like to offer. But I do like the customization. The customization of this one was really great. I think this one is a pretty good one overall. I'm trying to see where to put this. You know, I think this is going to be a little bit controversial here, which all these tier lists are. I'm kind of used to it at this point. But I'm going to put Tekken 6 on the A tier, only because I did play this game a lot, and I definitely, you know, do like going back to it, especially like just to do the one-on-one, and some of the stages here were really cool. So I definitely enjoyed this one. Actually no, I'm going to dock this because the final boss, Azazel, was a pain in my ass. And I just remembered that now. It was a memory I was trying to repress. So, yeah, we're gonna knock it down to B just because of that garbage boss. But whatever. Alright, the next is Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Now, this one I was hella hyped for. And at the time, I suffered a little bit too much hype. I had a lot of hype into this game. Like, I really wanted to play this game. They brought all the characters back from previous Tekkens. That, you know, plus some new ones, free DLC, like for all new characters that come out, they gave it to you basically for free, which was insane. Nowadays, like, that's impossible. Like, just look at Tekken 7, that's impossible. Like, they'll never do that. Soul Calibur 6, again, impossible. They'll never give you a free character ever again. But Tekken Tag Tournament 2 did that, and unfortunately, sales wise, it didn't do as well as people wanted to. And I think I have some theories with it. As good as the game was, it suffered from, it's mechanically, it's a lot to deal with as a newcomer, you know, because the juggles can be extended even further when it comes to, okay, you hit a guy in the air, then you tag in your partner at the same time, he can juggle you, and then it goes back to another juggle. It really can get overwhelming, and honestly, like, one combo can knock you down to, like, you know, 10% health. It's insane, you know. The juggling is insane in this one. It's just one wrong move, that's it. You're juggled forever to infinity. I'm telling you, this game is incredibly difficult when it comes to that. But I did manage online. I played a couple people online, and I did really well. My team was Elisa Voskanovic and Asuka Kazama. Great team, great pairing, a lot of fun, loved them. So yeah, overall, you know, I've enjoyed this game a lot. With, like I said, with the characters, the modes that was introduced. They had this mode called combat mode, where basically, or combat training, which you took combat and you not only customized it a little bit, but you also learned moves, and you would apply those moves to your character. It was actually a lot of fun, like, to, you know, build up your own moveset. And it really, to me, I thought it was going to be, okay, Tekken 7 is going to have like a character creator, and they're kind of like testing it to see, okay, you can add this move and add that move. It was really cool. I would say at the time I kind of felt a little bummed out with Tekken Tag Tournament 2, just because I wish there was a little more to do with single player. But looking back on it, I mean, there was a lot to do, a lot of characters to play around with, a lot of different combinations to do. From a pure hardcore perspective, this is probably would be like the best Tekken ever, I would say. you know, if we were going on a pure fighting standpoint. But I would say, due to what I was saying with the whole, learning curve of it, and some of the single player modes may not be the most enticing compared to stuff in the past, I would put this at A tier. Still really good. Oh, the netcode was also far smoother than Tekken 6. I forgot to mention that. Tekken 6's netcode was horrible, but Tekken Tag Tournament 2, very smooth, very good. Alright, so then last and final one is Tekken 7. And there's a lot to talk about with this one, but I've kind of already done it. Like I said, I've done a review on this, so I'm not going to get too in detail to it this time. But from a fighting perspective, probably the best in the whole series. Definitely from a pure mechanical standpoint, feels really good, feels really fresh. I love how there's more emphasis on the stand-up game versus just pure juggling, which is great. Step away from the crazy Tekken Tag Tournament 2 juggle madness that it was. So I really appreciated that. The problem is, the online was also pretty smooth. Some people have had issues, but I personally have had no issues. Well, actually one time. But that was at launch, and let's be honest, what game at launch is not smooth? Almost every game at launch for the most part has some connection issues, whether or not it's from bad netcode or just the fact that there's just a lot of people playing at that time. It's bound to happen. So I don't take too concern. I think some people overblown it, like it was overblown for some people, but it is what it is. The matchmaking is a little weak. So I'm basically talking from the PC perspective, but the graphics are fantastic. I love the graphics, but man, I feel like Tekken 7 just like, I haven't played this game in a long time. Like, it's been a couple years since I played it, and as I mentioned before, I still played Soul Calibur 6. I still have a lot of fun with that, and I love the support. And Tekken 7 is still getting supported, if not more, than Soul Calibur 6. And I gotta be frank with you, I've kind of done with this game. It kind of bugs me because it's like, I don't think it's anything wrong with the fighting itself. Because if I have a friend over, it's fun as hell. Like, we can just go at it. Graphically, it looks amazing. It's honestly a lot of fun. Like, with people, just like one-on-one. The pure one-on-one is a lot of fun. But it's kind of my issue I have is that it's just for the hardcore perspective. It's not like other fighting games or it's not like Soul Calibur where there's like a good amount of modes, things to play around with. All you have here is the story mode, an arcade mode, like one-off episodes just to like get some sort of prologue and epilogue, and that's really it. And then also a mode where you just fight, people for costumes. Honestly, there's just not a lot to do. Oh, and then they had that stupid Tekken Bowl mode that was like $10 when it used to be free back in like Tekken 5. So yeah, I'm overall just not. It's just a game that long term I've really just fallen off with, and I think PC wise, I think it still has like a decent fighting game community on PC. But good luck trying to get connected with someone, because to get connected takes a while, sometimes depending on the time of day. And two, good luck like in general, because like it's a very hardcore crowd right now online. And it honestly feels like if you haven't been playing since launch or since the latest patch or whatever, like you're going to have a difficult time. But it's a shame, like I said, because I think from a pure fighting game perspective, like it's a lot of fun. But man, it's just very hardcore focused. They really focused on the hardcore fans who just care about the fighting and nothing else, which sucks. Because I wish there was more to do in the game from a single player perspective. Online, like I said, tournaments are cool and stuff, but I don't know, man. I just wish there was a little more to do compared, like if there was some sort of like beat 'em up mode like Tekken 3 had or something like that. I don't know, man. I just wish there was more. There has been more that they've added, like, from the multiplayer perspective and more characters and stuff. So that's always fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But just in terms of, I just wish there was more modes in general, I don't know. That's just how I personally feel. I know some people are going to disagree with me. But this is where I'm gonna put it. Take it for what you will. The conclusion, I'm also glad that the story was a little bit more focused on the whole, you know, it was basically focused on the whole, you know, Kazuya and Heihachi and the ending with that. So I'm really curious if there is going to be a Tekken 8. I don't know. But this is where I put it. It's not a bad note. If the series was to end today, it's not a bad note to end. But I just feel like Tekken 7 could have been a lot more. But again, it's my opinion. I know people love that game, but I just feel like I wish there was more content, you know, from an offline perspective. Alright, so that's it. This is how I feel about the Tekken series. I think I'm just going to keep it how it is. Stir the pot. I know some people are going to start yelling at me for being wrong because I don't agree with them, but it is what it is. That's the world we live in. Anyways, thank you guys for watching as always. You know, let me know what you guys think below. Like the video, dislike it if you don't agree with me. And as always, this is Powerhouse signing off.